of yesterday, right? 10 hours or so.
Yep.
Which do you guys prefer?
Well, these also, the nature of them is, these are very different from science dives. Uh, from the science perspective, I assist with the dive planning when we're doing science dives. And sometimes I think the length matters less as far as like how fulfilling it is based on the science objectives. Like if they're like, well, we really want to explore this entire ridge from this depth to this depth, and the only way to do that is for this long dive. Or, our focus is at this depth gradient, and we want to cover a lot of different sites from a spatial perspective. So there'll be shorter dives. I think knowing the big picture, that's what, at least from my perspective, I don't mind whether or not we're up in the van. Sure, it's nice to know, like once you get into like the 36 hour long dives, etc. It's nice to like have a watch where you're like, all right, we're gonna be transiting, I'm gonna be turning over, or whatever. I'm gonna switch to mapping mode.
Sure.
But I think it's more so the objectives, like. And for ONC, that's okay. We have this cable lay. We know that's going to be a long one, but when we're done, the cable will be laid. At Endeavor, we've got a tool basket dive where we're lowering an elevator that has a bunch of stuff in it, and we're going to keep going back to it and loading stuff on and off. And then when we're done, all those tasks will be complete. So to me, that's kind of where it comes from. But I don't know what the pilot's perspective is. They're also on 12-hour watches, which is different than our normal operations,
Yeah.
where you only have a short time in the seat.
Yeah.
Long dives are preferred. You get a lot done. You get a lot of surface transits done, a lot of transects. Um, and if you have a sample basket with, you know, 10 or 15 push cores and you're getting all your bio, you can only go as long as you have enough storage for your samples.
Sure, sure.
So it's either a video dive or it's a sample dive. Most sample dives, you'll get a lot of video transect, and then you'll take a bunch of samples while you're doing it, and then once the vehicle's full, that's it. We can only carry so much, so honestly, it's the application. Um, yeah, it gets annoying if you're going deep and you're doing, 4 or 5 hour dive and you're coming back up, and it takes 4 hours to get down and 4 hours back up. But like I said, it's application.
I guess I was thinking about it from the perspective too of like recovery operations, right? Like is that stressful or tedious to be, just doing all the checks and making sure everything's good to go?
No, I mean it's like a pit crew on a race team. You know, you get the vehicles on deck is after the race. You're getting everything, you check everything out, ready to go for the next race. Um, yeah, it can get tedious, but honestly, you can find things that fall. Ocean's constantly trying to destroy your vehicle.
Yeah.
Right.
So the more time we have on deck between dives, the more chance we're going to have a successful dive the next dive.
It's also, in proof of that, then it is satisfying to have a dive that's very long, because you're like, well, nothing's leaking, nothing's gone wrong, we did all the other stuff right, so we can be down here for a long time.
Yeah.
The dives I hate are when we get down the bottom and then we blow our seal out in the arm and we have to abort the dive. You know,
Yeah.
that's tedious, and it can get exhausting when you have a vehicle that's falling apart. So it's good to have a maintenance period in the beginning of the year and make sure that your vehicle is tight, all your systems are up to snuff. You've got, like this year, we added a bunch of comps and different systems to make the system more robust. We have a new arm that's not bleeding to death, like the old Magnum. We never knew that thing was going to last a dive.
Yeah, really. Yes, when I was thinking about this, I was comparing it to if I were taking a long flight. And like, would I rather fly direct, you know, overseas or something like this, or take a bunch of layovers, right? And it's the takeoff and, you know, layover time and stuff like this that's like the most tedious. So I didn't know if that translated.
Not really, because we're focused on the vehicle, making sure everything's working correctly during the long time transects. You know, we're piloting, you're actively doing your job, and it's when you're sitting in the chair not doing anything, or when you're on deck waiting for the next dive and the vehicle's ready to go, just it can get tiresome. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely does. What I'm truly trying to get across here is that in my time off, I sit and think about you guys. Just want to let you know that you guys are awesome. If you see me drinking coffee and reflecting, I'm like, what's going through those guys' heads?
Like on my other system I work on, we're the exact opposite. We spend more time in the hangar and on land than we do on the ship. So when we go. We have the 4-day mobilization where we have to install the entire system onto the ship. We have to do all the pre-dives, pre-checks, make sure everything is tight, and then we do a test dive at the dock. Then we go out, we do a what we call a squeeze dive because our system is a 6,000 meter rated system. We do a squeeze dive to like 4,000 meters, and that pushes all the air out of the system. And then we come on deck, we bleed the system down, and then we check everything, and we put it back in the water and do science. And more times than not, we've been hit by mechanical failures that could have been found if we just had more time at sea.
Yeah.
But being in the shop and dismantling the entire system is the hardest thing you can do to a vehicle. The subsea robot, it wants to be subsea.
right. Yeah, I'm sure there's like a balance between the like excitement of a, you know, maybe like high stakes is maybe a little bit too strong of a word, right? But versus being able to relax and enjoy the experience, right?
Yeah, definitely.
The NASCAR example, the pit crew is helpful too. I'll keep that in mind.
I mean, me, I'm mechanical and well, extremely mechanical. So doing the deck work is what makes this all worth it. Is knowing that this is the vehicle you put together, you helped put together, and it operates on for a 26-hour dive on bottom without any flaws. That's the best feeling. Same with NASCAR, you know, your pit crew, you have a vehicle that wins the race.
Yeah.
You made that happen.
Yeah, it's really cool.
We're approaching our halfway mark.
Woohoo! 51 minutes.
13:33. No, 13:30 is halfway.
Jake's over here just like, no comment.
Yeah, I wasn't going to call you out or anything.
My favorite dive? The next one.
I think you're taking too many notes from Dan. Well, as a good mentor of mine always said, you know, I'm just a bus driver.
Dan and I have spent a lot of time together over the last few months.
Ain't that the truth?
It's like looking into the future. Is that what you see?
Slowly creeping back towards Atalanta.
But don't be going and buying no farms in Oregon.
It's like 17 meters away.
Give it a little forward.
It's not the worst. We got time, but
Give it the beans. Oh.
I gave it a little bit more.
Yeah, you might gotta slow that down.
Craft? You mean the craft?
I hope you mean the craft.
Alright, we got a 35-meter delta. We gotta do something about that.
Yeah. I have like no give right now.
Yeah.
You're going down.
Yeah.
You know, that'll do it. I was like, why am I going so slow?
Winches all stop.
I got a nice, good breeze going for you. Excellent. Just rest it against the porch.
Alright, we're gonna need to start some forward way now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Give it some. Gotta think like a flight. Pull back to go up, push down to go down.
Your Atalanta heading is coming back to face Hercules for some reason.
I would just drive ahead. Let
Yeah,
it
we got the
turn around.
we're up too high and not stretched out. We got the
Okay.
Don't even worry about coming up. Just
What's our wraps?
drive ahead. Wraps will be fine if once Atalanta turns back around.
There we go. Atlanta's coming back around.
Alright, back in the box.
Do I want to swing hook around so I'm behind the vehicle, behind the ship, or that will happen when they start making way?
Once it starts streaming, it should.
Yeah, as long as, usually if you're in this circle,
Okay.
this end, we can sort it. And if we can't, you'll have to lateral, but usually we deal with that closer to the surface.
Okay.
I think it's easiest to, when you're at the bottom, to just drive this way, you know, instead of just coming up wherever you are, just drive to the other way. It takes like 1 more minute because Herc can drive fast, but otherwise then you gotta sort it out with laterals in the water column, and that just takes forever. Okay. What do we got? Doing good, balanced.
Yeah, I'm only
Nice.
making 19 meters a minute though.
You probably need less forward way. You see how you're dragging
Yeah.
Atalanta real far. And the reason I don't stream from any deeper than like 500 meters is because in some areas of the world, and even out here, this will change over time. So if you do that for 2 hours, now you've got a current coming this way when you could have just adjusted it, you know. It's kind
That
of,
makes sense.
yeah,
That and you're way off of the station.
yeah. So I'm watching the ADCP, and it's, you know, we're facing roughly into it. It's only 0.2 knots, and it'll be very slightly. You might have to lateral to Hercules port at the surface, but not really that much, to be honest. I think you're fine. Yeah, when I first started, it was like we would just stream from the bottom, and then you'd get to the surface and like, why am I pinned 90 degrees to starboard, you know, or whatever, because everything's changed since you know. And then, so we've got, before we had the ADCP, you just have the current, or the wind speed, and the current is just the measured on all other forces, so it's binning extra wind in there, it's binning swell and current. And then it also bins the drag from the vehicles, so you're streaming forward and suddenly you're like, yeah, I'm heading right into the current, but really, this could be way over here, you know?
Yeah.
Recently with the ADCP, we're a little bit in better state, but that last bit of, the last, you know, 20 meters of water, which we can't always measure well with the ADCP, has sometimes much different properties, vector and force, than the subsea current, subsurface current. So it's all just the best that we can line it up. But I think just being proactive and trying to make minor movements rather than big movements too early, it can kind of make it so you have a really smooth recovery versus a rough one.
Okay.
We drive by computer at the surface. Some people do a, you know, drift with the current thing. That only works when the vehicles are at the surface, because otherwise subsurface currents will mess you up. But at the surface, you would need to be headed directly into the wind, which hopefully that's your swell direction. And then you could manual forward and drift in the current, but you'd have to match your forward thrust on the ship to compensate just for the wind and not for the current, like enough wind that you're not blowing backwards from the wind. So
Yeah.
usually what happens is in that moment, unless you just nail it right away and do all that, it's better to just make the computer do what you want it to do, and we can make minor adjustments there
Makes sense.
rather than a crazy live boat situation right at the surface, you know. But the subsurface currents haven't been too bad here. Nothing we can't compensate. It's near the equator where they get rough. They're usually like a couple knots hard in one direction, and it's usually different from what your surface currents are. So it takes a bit to like A, address that, and B, convince pilots that it'll be okay at the surface, even though it's way wrong down below.
Yeah, it's like that off of the Hawaiian off of Big Island.
Yeah.
Rennie,
Yeah.
hearing you like talk through some of these scenarios gets me wondering, do you guys have to do like any sort of like immersive simulation prior to getting out here? Is this all on the job and experiential, or have you kind of like run through scenarios?
This is, I mean, it's on the job with the people that are coming up. I'll introduce these concepts, but you know, all of these things are really dynamic, and you'll have to respond differently in different scenarios when you've got swell direction, wind waves, and current. And
Are you slowing down?
Yeah, I slowed down.
Oh, stop
I
on the
messed up.
winch.
I stopped.
and you know, wind
Okay,
affects
go
the
ahead.
ship, but it doesn't affect the vehicles because they're low profile, and we can't be rolling around in the swell too much, but if you have a powerful wind, you have to be facing into that. We can't take a strong wind abeam. There's limitations of the bow thruster and the jet pump.
We were starting to come together again.
Hmm?
We were starting to come together again.
Okay.
So I wanted to give it a little more.
Yeah.
But from like the first day kind of learning the ropes thing, do you get some sort of talk through or kind of simulate different
So in a
scenarios?
situation like
to
that,
do-
I'll usually. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I try to introduce that with the people coming up. I think when I started, it was a lot of trial and error, understanding what does what
Yeah,
and what doesn't work.
I screwed up, put stuck like a center.
So we've kind of, for this system and this ship, we've honed in a good procedure, but that's taken time to figure out what works on different vessels with different strengths and weaknesses and how it applies to us. Like, yesterday we saw the cable innovator, we zoomed in and there's an ROV on the side of that. We
Right.
saw that was that launches a beam, it launches on the port side. They also probably have DP2 and, really like redundant and robust stuff where they could probably be a beam to a strong wind because they have to lay a cable in a certain direction, things like that.
Yeah, but they also have a top hat system.
So what?
Probably have a top hat system where you're not trailing behind the cable.
Yeah.
You are part of the cable.
Yeah. And,
Like-
there's the other systems with heave compensation. At the surface, some are recovered through a moon pool. Yeah, everything's going to be kind of different. And then some of our limitations are we're a two-body system. So that recovery process is going to be different than other single-body systems. It's going to be different from, or more similar to, but still different from those with the tether management system or, So all of these things kind of together, the strength of the vehicle, how much it can fight a current at the top, all of them are kind of paired together.
Yeah, and I imagine pretty individual. Even if it were the same system, vehicles and mobility and operations must have little individual behaviors.
Yeah, and environment is so much the factor. I mean, that's the subsurface stuff that you can't always control for. You know, we might have the vehicles directly under the ship up to 50 meters depth because there's a really strong current that we can't fight. And sometimes it's worth not fighting it until you have a better known surface conditions based on all the sensors I just mentioned. So you can just fix it at the surface as long as you get past that interface. But sometimes that unnerves people to not be streaming aft and ready to go from a few hundred meters down. But if there's a 3-knot equatorial countercurrent that's just subsurface, you can't always fight that, you know. And of course, all of this is to say there are limitations. We don't operate in certain wind thresholds and certain, it's not just the forces, but it's the vectors of them. So if we have a really opposing swell and current and wind, there are scenarios where we can't have a very nice recovery.
Yeah, yeah.
It reduces our percentage of success. So in those instances, we try to anticipate that before launch. Should we be going in if we don't have a reasonable belief that the vehicles will be safe coming back?
Yeah.
And of course, the hard cutoff is personnel safety. You know, if we could only launch in a really, because of wind and swell, if we could only launch in a really strong trough or something, and we'd have an extreme roll of the vehicle coming back on deck, we wouldn't want to jeopardize any of that. But
yeah, it's really cool to hear you guys all just, you know, pool your experience. Of course, like across several, you know, watch teams as well. I think about how, like the closest to anything like this I've ever got was one time I did the like flight simulator at the NASA Armstrong site. So it's like the C-130 touch and goes. So just practicing landing and taking off. And I crashed that plane 100% of the time, right? I mean, I could not have been more far off.
yeah,
So I just kind of think about how you translate the preparatory side, right, for the real deal for the in the field experience.
Basically, stick time.
yeah,
I mean, I have a lot of experience flying model airplanes and drones and RC cars and things like that, and it all applies.
in an ideal world, you know, that sick time includes sitting next to someone who has a lot of sick time and listening and watching. But that isn't always the case. It'll sometimes be a spin up and then all right, now you get to learn by doing. And hopefully there's enough guardrails to keep from anything, you know, bad from happening. But
I mean, this is going to be my third recovery. I mean, actually, no, second recovery if it doesn't kick me out of the seat
of the cruise,
of the cruise, yes.
yeah. I seem to be on launch and recovery watch.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
You know, the other team will fix the vehicle, put it back together, and then it'll be time to dive again.
Yeah. So our off watch in this seat is usually doing mapping, shipboard, multi-beam. So when we come up on deck, the ROV team is busy prepping and fixing the vehicle. The science team takes their samples off to process, and usually to get to the next site, we'll be mapping along the way whatever gaps there are in global seafloor mapping coverage. So that's kind of our role, and also preparing our systems for the next dive as well, and planning, assisting with the mapping, planning for the dives with scientists.
Yeah, it's an important point. It's not like post-dive we collectively catch our breath, right? It's the
Yeah.
work continues.
And that's, you know, like that's the limitation of ships, is that there's a limited berthing and there's a certain amount of things to do. And it's kind of divvied up in a way that can make it all happen.
Yeah, we had a school ask us just yesterday about what we do in our free time, and we kind of laughed at that. Like, free time is when you get back to shore.
Yeah, I mean, we have a good mix of people on the ship. This is a bit atypical. We've got a lot of experienced people, but on normal cruises, we do have interns and some people, you know, it's their second or third time out. And then experienced people and people who come out for a long time who are familiar in a given season with the quirks of whatever's happening. So all of that put together, you know, I think allows for fresh perspectives to come in, the scientists being really excited, and then the also just the, you know, okay, we've been doing this. We had a whole cruise doing this, launches and recovery. This isn't unfamiliar territory for the people who had been staying around, you know. So all of those together kind of make a good, fun environment.
Yeah, definitely. I've been enjoying. I think we mentioned this, you know, in one of the previous watches, right? Just like the unique flavor of each of the cruises, and this one has just been really neat to see this much engineering, infrastructure, planning. You know, this is definitely a unique series of dives and objectives. Really enjoying.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, and probably could speak for the ROV team as well, is like this is some of the most fun stuff because every dive is different. You've got a new task list, a new ballasting of the vehicle, picking up stuff, putting down, you know, doing arm work, locating stuff, switch over to high-res mapping or photogrammetry, or switch over to a science objective, and then go back to engineering and flip it over and go to the next site and recover a mooring. You know, all that stuff is kind of fun to piece together, and it there's something to be said for the long amount of time we get on normal science cruises for like really true science dives, and the exploration and the amount of footage we get and everything like that, but it's certainly not as fast-paced or varied.
Yeah, that's what that was the word I was going to use, was dynamic, right?
Yes,
like
yeah.
the traditional science exploration dives, you're there to, you see what you see, right? We know where we're going to go, and generally speaking, you kind of follow the plan. Whereas this has really been, you know, active and you know, putting the pieces together as the pieces are changing shape, right?
Yeah.
And I love just seeing all the different tech used and the skill of our operators.
Yeah.
My goodness, the manipulations to do these things. It's
Right.
incredible.
I can't even plug in USB the right way the first
Same.
time.
That's a problem everyone has.
Yeah. I mean, that speaks to also, we were just mentioning how we have an experienced team where on a normal cruise for Nautilus, you have an experienced Hercules pilot and a more green or possibly intern co-pilot. And so they're not able to, while the main Herc pilot's flying, they can just get on the arm and grab a sample. That's just not what's happening. It's usually a single person who's kind of doing both. The other is observing and is slowly building that up and assisting. So we have the luxury with this cruise of having two people in the seat who can do either job, not only just to mix it up, but just to physically do them both at the same time.
Yeah, and we're also doing watches of 3 instead of 2.
Right. So then they cycle through. And it, for something like this where efficiency means you can do more tasks, like whatever we don't get done that was needed to get done, if it was because we were too slow in a different task, for example, then that doesn't get done until the next year possibly, you know, on a
Yeah.
different cruise. So it's kind of imperative that we are able to check things off as quick as we can while not compromising any, you know, slow is fast kind of thing. You want, you do want that. You do want steadiness, but still efficiency.
You want to do a gauge check? Copy paste. Well, that conversation ate up a bunch of time.
Yeah, good blue water convo.
Good company, guys. Good company.
Sorry for droning on.
No, it's really neat to hear your guys' perspective. I feel like every time I'm like, just kind of get lost in the sauce listening to even just you guys chat through what you guys are up to. It's really neat to get that perspective.
It's my new favorite phrase, lost in the sauce.
Lost in the sauce.
I think, Reddy, you said that first? I don't know. You said it a couple nights ago. I'm like, that's brilliant.
I feel like I'm supposed to be like leading conversation more, but I'm just like just enjoying the moment, you know?
Yeah, and it's tricky because there's so much operational talk that you need to make space for.
Yeah.
So.
And it's just, I mean, also, I don't know, the experience of is kind of these little moments of zen as we
Yeah.
traverse,
Blue
right?
water.
Want to switch to launch and recovery? Salvo?
We probably can.
Get a deck camera up, or just a deck camera?
As long as you got a good winch view, then I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Yeah, we
that.
got good winches.
All right, so looks like we got a bit of glare. I'll radio that down, just that we may need call-outs.
Yeah.
I'm about to go make sure Mike's aware that we're coming up, because I don't know if they
You want to let
racked
them know
out. Oh,
that
they're
we
down
have,
there. Great.
oh, okay.
I'll just radio them then.
Yeah, just let them know we have stuff hanging off the front of the porch.
Yeah, a couple stabby bits.
Well, switch out with Dan right now and go do that.
Go ahead.
But I don't know where Dan is.
He has the radio.
You guys get up here? If I just go get Dan and set him up?
Yeah, I think so.
What do you want?
I was just I'm gonna go down, get Dan, set him up here, and go to the deck.
Okay, that's all good.
Yeah.
Let Mike. Well, Mike's watching. He's fine. He's all geared up.
Yeah. Still got 30 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, he's.
I gotta get my boots on, you know. I gotta get
Oh,
situated.
here he goes. Okay.
Get some Sour Patch.
Okay.
Maybe a Snickers. All right.
Yeah, we're fine.
all good. Rennie can walk me through the recovery.
Yeah. Just kind of naturally just end up talking about it as it's happening.
Yeah. Just keep
Yeah, you'll be fine.
keep
So this is
pointing
all we
away.
got. 0.2 knots current going that way, so you'll be able to fight. You'll be
Yeah,
able
I'll
to
be able to
keep,
get
yeah.
in the goalposts.
Yeah, once we
Once you
get
start steaming
streaming.
ahead.
Yeah, probably another couple 100 meters just to be sure. But everything seems kind of fine. Another thing I watch is all of that, but also what the jet pump has to do to keep in place.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, he's down there giving high fives to everybody. What is this? Come on. Leaves the van and he's so pleased with himself, you know.
Well, glad he's doing it.
Yeah.
I have no problem with deck work. It just seemed like Dan hadn't put me on deck this cruise.
Yeah. I haven't gotten enough deck time, but
I think
it's
Dan just wants me to work on my recoveries and launches.
good. Yeah, it's good to get a bunch under for you know, each different system, like we were saying.
Like we do is at 50 meters, we secure the screws and pull straight up.
Mm. You have the
Lukai.
you have but you have the lift, the tether's on the top, isn't it?
Yeah, tether's on top.
Yeah.
So it's attached to the bottom of the TMS is a two-party system that's one, and then comes up through the A-frame.
Oh yeah, that's much better than having to deal with all these angles.
No, there's better. There's like I was telling Joseph, who's the other URI guy?
Johan?
Johan. I almost called him Joseph. Johan, I was telling him this morning that each system has pros and cons. You know, you guys can stream along and get Atlanta real low and actually guide it and get really good footage, where we have a TMS that has no control.
Yeah.
We can feed more tether out, we can pull tether in, but we can't get a good camera angle on it. We can't get that eye in the sky that we love.
And near vents, for example, if you were doing vent work, then you don't really know where it is necessarily.
I mean, we have no sonar on the TMS. Yeah. We just know, well, there's the lights in our rear view mirror.
Yeah. I find, I mean, sonar on Atalanta is like, when we're moving around, it's like incredibly useful.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And I'd love to put sonar on our TMS, but it'd have to have some kind of system that shot out and then sense the tether coming in and push it in or something.
If you have that, then you might as well have even a cheap camera on it, just a down cam.
I do have a couple down cams on it.
You do? Okay.
Yes. We do that so we can watch when we're docking and make sure we're aligned on everything. And also, we do have an eye in the sky, but it's just one of these Zeus Insight minis. SD cams. It's nothing special. We were thinking about putting a mini Zeus on there, but that requires a upgrade.
Fiber upgrade or just
a mux upgrade. Right now we've got a prism in there with we only have 3 fiber optics going down. So we have 1 for the TMS and 2 for the vehicle. And the second one on the vehicle is considered the science fiber, which I kind of hate because we could use it for so much more. But a difference in our vehicle is the entire egg is this big. The entire control can is this big.
Hmm. Oh, he's back. It's fine.
Text him. Call him on WhatsApp.
I mean, if you want me to radio him,
I would prefer him to be in the van.
do you want me to radio? I don't know. I might change the ship's heading just 10 degrees to starboard. That way we'll be a little more lined up and the wind's coming from there anyway.
Yeah, sounds good.
Bridge now. Oh, then I don't think we can go to starboard then, now that I watch it. Because the swell's coming kind of from port. Never mind, bridge, thank you, sorry. Yeah, if we went to port, then we'd have even a stronger, yeah, I was trying to go to starboard and I think that, it looks like the swell is this way, yeah? So
Yeah, it does.
we're probably in a good spot, it'll be fine. Yeah, but that's like splitting hairs. This is such, I mean, we're already faced into it, it's just slightly off to the port and it's only 0.2 knots of current, so
0.2 is fine.
we'll be fine. We can just increase speed at the surface if we need to.
Got the best navigator for the job.
The professional overthinker.
That's a quality I like in my navigators.
Yeah. Sometimes it requires calling the bridge and realizing that you don't need to.
Megan's the same way in that seat.
That's good. Yeah, she's great. She'll be out later in the season.
Yeah. She wanted to be on this one, but
Yeah, she was on the one last year, last minute. It was really cool. Stepped right in. I mean, obviously you guys have experience with cabled stuff, so it was an easy choice, but this one, I think she was excited to do it.
yeah. And it's great to have a freaking encyclopedia sitting next to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that? Oh, that's this, and this is the family of that.
She puts me to shame. I mean, she's obviously an actual trained biologist. I'm not at all in any shape or form. I'm like, can ID, like I can ID things. But if you ask me about anything biologically related
Well, you
to
know her
them,
day job is, right?
yeah, yeah.
She annotates videos, so
Annotates
she
the
literally
video,
does this
yeah.
job, just doesn't drive the vehicle.
And she has a PhD, right?
No, she's actually just a master's.
Oh, okay. Thought she had a PhD. Regardless.
I think she's better for having a master's, actually. Not everyone needs a PhD.
Yeah.
It's true. Don't do it. It's the worst.
I think he's tying knots and
I'm
she's
at
recording him.
I'm at a Just Masters as well.
Yeah, it's more than enough.
Yeah.
I'm a certificate.
Such an insane push to spend that many years in grad school. Like, the things you learn on the job are infinitely more helpful.
Yeah, depends on your job. I mean, if there's some roles that require it and would incredibly benefit from it, and then there's others where you don't need it. And I think trying to understand what you're going to want for your career when you're signing up for that, and the easiest thing is to kind of stay in it.
Right.
Once you're in that environment,
well, yeah, that's right.
Difficult.
That's
to
the
make
hard
that
thing
choice.
is going back, right? If you guess wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of people go through, but it seems like more and more jobs require it, and I don't see why.
Actually, I think it's going the opposite way right now. It's kind of going back the other direction. Trade schools and
I hope you're right.
And blue collar jobs are actually coming back a little bit.
Yeah, I see these job postings now, and it's like, needs PhD, 8 years experience, very entry level, right? It's like, especially in the natural sciences, you need a doctorate in natural sciences, and I don't understand why.
Yeah, it seemed like that when I was applying for different things.
I'm ready to move forward if you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, 500 meters.
Bridge now.
Right now we'd be waking up the entire team on Blue Kai system.
Can we
Oh, the
track a
rear
line
guy, we
forward
would
at the
be
ship's current heading, 0.3
waking up the
knots?
entire team for recovery. Well, we don't have a docking head. So we have 2 tag lines, 2 winch, operators, and then we have ring lines. So we have, so the taggers tag the forward and the on the top of the TMS, and the top of the TMS goes out to the wings of the boat, and we keep it from swinging, and we get it nice and level and bring it through the A-frame. Takes 7 people to launch and recover that thing. If you had a docking head, it would be a whole lot less.
A lot of the programs now, if you're doing like chemistry or physics or something like that, you go straight to a doctorate. You don't get a master's in between. So you elect the day you start that you're going to be there for
Really?
4 to 6 years.
You can
Yeah.
usually master out along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's usually a kind of a stamp of failure, right? It has like a
no,
negative
it's not.
connotation to it.
I think when you're in it, it does.
Yeah.
There is a bit of a negative connotation, but as soon as you're out of that,
Yep.
you
yeah.
realize that, yeah.
I totally agree. And yeah, I mean, the sooner you get,
Do you have a PhD, Brandon?
yeah,
that's right.
chemistry.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm surrounded.
Yeah, by dorks.
Yeah.
No, we're all nerds. We all agreed. We are all nerds. We have to be
That's
nerds to do
right.
this job.
Yeah.
But I don't have the education even close to what you guys have.
That's that kind of part of the conversation is you don't need to, it
Yeah,
depends
yeah.
on what you're doing, what you want to do.
I have on-the-job education. I have experience.
Yeah.
It's the experience.
I tell people my career is built on my reputation and my skill.
Yeah.
Well, I promise you, my piece of paper degree makes me equally useless in that seat, right? So
Yeah,
really.
from the start, yeah. What am I doing?
Oh, I just have a knack for mechanics and engines and hydraulic systems, electrical systems, and electromotive systems. I can look at a piece of machinery and just know how it works.
Yeah, I mean you don't have to have that type of learning education along the way and what have you, but say like a car mechanic, that's a incredibly complex machine, but that doesn't require you to go through an academic degree unless you're designing the car. You know what I mean?
Or
Exactly.
inventing the next car.
Or inventing
right.
the next car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me do my next thing. Bridge nav. Can we secure tanks, enable air to tuggers, and have the captain on the bridge? Thank you.
Wonder where Dan is. Dan, I know you're listening to us.
He might be in the data
Your
lab.
presence is requested in the van.
He's
His
in
room.
Van B. Deck control, radio check. Copy, 400 meter call out. I'm not doing it.
Oh, that's funny.
That's his way of saying I'm watching the depth.
He's like standing there literally looking at the GUI.
Yeah.
Graphical user interface.
Starting to line up. You may have to lateral a bit once, just to get in the pocket.
Jamie loves being down there.
Jamie asked me if she can get in the pilot seat at some point in this cruise, and I was like, we need to talk to Dan.
This is a
I mean,
tough
if
cruise to
AJ
get behind the seat.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if AJ can fly.
She's on American Samoa too, though.
Yeah, she might get some time.
Yeah.
I think she just wants to feel the controls and what it does, you know, just to better understand the system.
Yeah.
We'll do it in midwater. I don't think seafloor time, but midwater, yeah.
Is that a Dan?
3-5.
Lieutenant Dan! There goes Dan messing with stuff again.
If you pull too hard, you're going to take it out of the box.
Right.
Yeah, I'll let him know. If you don't hear me say it, just remind me that. Just let him know about the glare, that we might need call outs.
Hook looks like it's pulling around.
I think the way we're set up at the 50-meter handover, if you take that opportunity when we're not going up to just lateral over,
We'll line up right
you'll be
behind
lined
the
up, and
goalpost.
then I don't even think you'll have to keep the laterals on. You'll just line up and then come up.
I like to be lined up by 250 meters. So if you're not lined up by 230, 230.
We're getting pretty close.
Yeah. You need to be lined up by 230. If you're not, you're out of the box. Or you're distracted by SCFs. Or both. So you get some weird stuff happening in that last couple hundred meters. And the water gets warmer, so if you're working it hard,
Yeah, that makes
in
sense.
your neck of the woods, you want to do all your work while it's still cold.
Makes sense.
Well, I'm moving over.
And if you go to work on a free flyer, that's the magic number, because they start pulling lemons at 100 meters.
Dan, I can barely hear you.
If you go to, if you're working on a free flyer, that they start pulling floats at 100 meters. So you gotta
Gotcha.
have all your ducks in a row before you get there.
Makes sense.
And yeah, the whole hot water, cold water thing. We saw the thermal change significantly in those tropical latitudes around that depth.
I wish we could get a shot of the team in that ROV bay right now. A beautiful group of excited team right there. Look at that, look at he's waving his arms. And
Victorious.
Mike,
Celebrating the victory before we
Right.
got it on the deck.
Mike likes to get them all pumped up before they...
Prepare them for battle, deck battle.
Yeah. It's sunny outside. People are wearing sunglasses and stuff. If you, you should be able to stop thrusting ahead, Danny. And you're dropping your pressure to 1500 PSI. You're making a 20 horsepower ROV, a 10 horsepower ROV. So you watch your pressure when you're
Gotcha.
giving all that command. Should, if you're dropping it below 2000, you're whistling Dixie.
Oh, look, it's actually doing something now.
What's that?
I said, oh, look, it's actually doing something now.
Yeah, you can do full verts and full lats. You can do any two, pretty much, and stay at 2000. If you do any three, or if you do two and you got a little like auto heading or something else on, it'll drop below into the yellow.
Go ahead, Bridge. Roger that, thank you.
Getting in behind the goalpost.
Yeah. Well done.
And you'll, you were probably pulling Atalanta there, you know, third of a ship length or something. So it'll swing back in. If you're pulling on it too hard, it'll, you can tell by your aft camera wire there. Or cam wire as it's known in the video world.
I only gotta do this another dozen times before I get it right.
I've done it dozens of times and I still don't get it right, so don't beat yourself up. It's always some new variable that we didn't count for or didn't expect or got complacent and forgot about. Like, we should put that in the checklist that the winch operator should go manual
At 100 meters.
at 100 meters. And look at the winch payout, not the depth.
Okay, I can add that over here if you guys don't mind it coming from this seat.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You're the only one in here with a checklist. We're just, you know, joyriders. Johan decided a few things. The captain suggested that we put Hercules is dive, dive, dive after Mike says Atlantis in the water
Oh yeah.
on the checklist. But I said, well, I'm trying to get navigators to do that by tradition, not force, by example.
I think that's probably good, huh?
Lynette flatly refuses.
Oh man.
So she'll turn down the radio, and the captain is convinced that without that tradition, things don't go well for the ROV.
Mm. Gotta have a little bit of that
I got to say it the other day.
sailor.
It's right up there with video. I don't know if Lynette's aware of this, but Steve started a tradition on here where video did the countdown for Niskin pulls, and he had this real NASA-like voice. 3, 2, 1, Niskin.
I love that. Let's bring that back.
It was very close to 3, 2, 1, ignition.
Nice.
But yeah, not all the ROV peeps are aware of that tradition. Nor the video. I know. Who do we have saying it yet? We had Ashley saying it, I think.
I was finding that it was easier to see the Niskins when we turn the port light off.
Totally.
You could actually see them. It's
I
like overblown otherwise.
was finding the same thing.
I think we found the perfect size ball though.
Yeah.
Golf balls are a little too small.
They were fine for the parallels.
Yeah.
That's the intermeshing coral cutters that we have on there most of the year. Looks
Definitely
like
a
you're
little
all
bit of a
lined up
curve.
there. So the one I start watching now is the 20-degree offset of Atlantis compass and the Herc compass. And then know that your recovery heading is going to be like 225 if I got that right, but I have known to get that backwards and make Josh yell over the radio to stop driving forward. And that was after many recoveries or launches, so.
Yeah, there's definitely a current or something pushing me off too.
Yeah, that's that. I think it's stronger subsurface, but at the surface it's about 0.2 knots coming this way. So you'll be able to, I think, just lateral at the surface and have it, but probably subsurface it's strong.
It is, it's pushing me off.
Yeah.
You also, by getting lined up earlier, you get a feel for which way it's pushing you at least up through that last 50 meters.
Makes sense.
And I try and play a little game. I see if I can figure it out without looking at the nav screen, because I know I'm not going to have the nav screen. So I try to get the trends. If I'm bored the last couple hundred meters. Take away one of your sensors and see if you can compensate with the other ones. $10 meters to go.
10 meters, roger.
Don't forget to put your camera up.
I'll stop 50.
I'll stop 50.
Deck control.
For deck.
I'll stop 50 meters.
Stop 50 meters. Break, bridge, back deck. Permission to go ahead and recover the ROVs.
During the day at this point, I'll turn all the lights off as well. So I don't have to deal with them.
Back deck bridge. Bridge, back deck, permission to go ahead and recover the ROVs. Charlie to recover. Captain.
If we have samples in the boxes, I'll give them a touch close, but I'll usually look at them at this point because sometimes they have been known to
Deck control.
get bumped somehow.
Go for back deck.
Just letting you know that we have some threaded rods sticking out on the front porch of Hercules, and also there is a bit of glare, so I may need some vehicle call-outs when we're on the surface.
Copies. Threaded rod off the porch, glare for the cameras, and I'm guessing you guys are going to keep high voltage all the way to the deck.
Roger.
Roger, we will be doing that.
Deck copies.
At least till we're over inboard.
Okay. All right, are we all buttoned up? We got the camera. Do you want me to stop the mezzos?
Yep. We should also make a habit of stopping both sonars. So this one is this little guy here, I believe.
Yep.
Because it'll run on deck and get hot as well.
Okay, I'll put that in.
And yeah, box is closed, lights off. Double check on the turn counter. But we were talking about putting that check of the turns in nav.
Yes.
At the off bottom.
Yes.
We've seemed to miss it.
Yeah, I haven't added that all yet, but I have it to add.
Yeah, because it's a bummer when when we're on deck and we don't know we have a turn, as you know.
Yep.
And it's nighttime and then weather's coming up and
Yep.
we could have stopped at, 100 meters and rectified that.
Control, deck. Have eyes on Hercules coming up in between the A-frame at the moment.
Sweet.
Copy. There you go. Do you got visual on it?
Yep.
Got it.
Go.
Control, deck. Hercules at the surface. Still fairly center line, but is drifting to starboard.
Yeah, we got a sight.
Copy.
So Atlanta's coming through the interface, so you can stick ahead a little bit. Watch the wire cam there.
They're both hooked.
You're watching the wire cam over there.
Yep.
Well, watching both, but
I've got my head on a swivel. Looking at 4 or 5 screens at once.
I like to watch the big spinny thing in the back. But yeah, now once he's above the deck, you can pull ahead. And you can probably give some lateral in there. Then once it's on the deck, you can relax and click in auto heading. Now you can pull ahead again, turn and pull that Atlanta back.
Okay, it's tight.
Just wait, you'll see Atlanta slide into the braces. There it went. You'll see him tighten up the port side tugger, and then he'll loosen the starboard, and then you can get off of it, relax a bit, so it's not trying to buck out of the braces.
Definitely got a surface current.
What's that?
Oh, there's definitely a surface current.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it here, but if you're fighting it too hard, when we go down south, it'd be watching the motor, so I'll go in and out of bypass.
Just so I know, Dan, what are you looking at that would cause you to go back into bypass?
The motor temperature here, that will turn red when it's above 60 C.
Okay, so the top left of under the pressure.
The current Grafana layout, subject to change. We don't have it, it's not in the GUI anymore, so it's here.
Yeah, that's
interim. And then I'm also watching that physical hydraulic level, so it's expanded to over 100% now.
Do you have that motor to set to go red? I see, yeah. So above 60 is what you...
Yeah, and we actually get it above 60 sub-C. It was just an arbitrary number I picked historically, you know, running it on deck.
You don't want to get into the 70s.
Yeah, definitely don't want it in the 70s.
Okay.
What we don't have on here yet is an oil temperature sensor, but we have well, the oil expands when it gets hot, so the reservoir will, if you could see it with a bubble camera, which you can depending on how the weather and the waves and how many bubbles there, but you'll see the pressure in the res go up pretty high, sometimes all the way up to wrap the gauge. And there's no relief valve on it. In theory, the reservoir can take 100 psi, but it wrecks the gauge at 25 or 30, whatever the gauge is. At this point, while they're doing the daisy chain, you can cheat a little bit and start lateral and right, which will bring you to the port side of the vessel. You can do that once he's got the hook on that he takes off on the starboard side of Atlanta.
The good thing about this current is it's pushed me right to where I want to be.
Yeah, it's always nice when you... If that's the case, you can just let go of it and it'll drift over there. Poor Hercules at rest, it's been working hard, 2,600 meters to get home. And I start watching that tail tether cam, and I'll start tweaking my head a little and pivoting around on the A-frame. So remember, auto head off, turn, click it back on. Even if you can't see Hercules, if that tether's straight and you fly ahead, you're good. So lateral's not doing much for you now, tipping you over. I also watch my pitch and roll, 20 degrees rolling over. So you can cheat and turn a little more so the tail's going the other way, and that'll help you get outboard.
There's my call outs.
I'd probably hold that heading. And
Control, back deck. Hercules is 10 meters from the transom.
Copy.
at that point, I'm pretty much perpendicular to the boat. Or I'm definitely cheating to make it go to your left there in the camera. Stop lateraling, Danny. It's not doing anything.
Okay.
Come out of auto heading, turn to the right a little more, and then fly ahead. She's pulling you on the crane, so you want to be outboard of the crane now, so fly ahead. It takes very little force to move the vehicle through the water, even though it looks like it does a lot. You could push it with your hand if you're in the water with it.
Not a good heading?
Yeah, maybe one more bump.
Yep, control, back deck. Hercules is passing the transom.
Outboard of the crane.
Passing the transom line.
That's probably good. Ready for auto heading off and bypass. I got my finger on the bypass button here, so I can get that.
Go ahead.
Yep, you're in bypass.
Control deck. We have Hercules coming out of the water.
Hercules is in bypass.
Copy. Ooh, we're about to lose that beacon.
It's
You still got a strap
I had
on
my
it.
eyes on it. I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah.
nothing we can do about it now.
Yep.
Should have pinned him the other way.
Couldn't,
Why not?
because the eye bolt was on the end of the boat porch instead of across the middle.
Alright, here we go. Just land on deck.
Nice and easy now.
Yeah.
Once you're over the deck, Danny, you can secure power.
Deck control, power secure.
Okay.
Copies.
Did we lose it?
No, we made it.
No, we got it. Yeah. Nice work, guys.
Oh,
That was a close one.
That's pretty good.
2 in a row.
Pretty good.
You know why? Because we didn't say Hercules is dive.
That was it. It's the
Okay,
luck.
Dan,